Hello, my name is Joshua Gilliland, and I'm one of the founding attorneys of the Legal Geeks. It's a pleasure to be with you at WonderCon at home to discuss the law of Star Wars. In the spirit of sheltering in place, we're going to go a little solo and talk about some of the big legal issues in a galaxy far, far away. First up, droid discrimination. When you think about R2-D2, IG-11, K2SO, there's a common thread that you can see in many of them, that they have feelings, they're loyal, they're helpful, they are there for their human counterparts. However, in Star Wars, we see droid discrimination take place. This came out swinging in A New Hope when we go to the Mos Eisley's cantina, and we see the bartender actually has installed a droid detector, so droids literally can't enter the bar. Moreover, when R2 and C-3PO try to enter, they're told, "We don't serve your kind here." That's straight out of the 1950s horror story that led to the civil rights movement, based upon decades of cruelty and discrimination. Well, would that be legal? Looking at California's public accommodation laws, I'm going to go with no, but there's a lot of legal analysis on why I think that it's wrong to discriminate against droids. Our laws in California are really broad when it comes to saying you can't discriminate people in restaurants, hotels, bars, and that's born out of the civil rights movement with a lot of the laws that were enacted because we got sick of cruelty in this country. Now, different states have these written in different ways. California includes sexual orientation. Some states do not, and that's been a live issue that's gone up to the Supreme Court. In our case, when you look at what do droids do, what do they represent, are they alive? Under the black letter law that we have, no. When you look at how they interact, how they live, I would say yes. So it would be a close issue for a court to decide if we had droids like R2-D2 and C-3PO that showed personality, fear, hope, joy. Those are the issues to look at. Now, we actually did a mock trial at WonderCon 2 years ago, and it was a rip-roaring good time. Over 500 people attended. And we do kind of want to take credit seeing what happened during the Solo release. We got to see droids were welcome at Denny's. Now, let's talk about one of the big issues that follows droid discrimination, and that's employee safety in Jabba the Hutt's palace. Now, Jabba the Hutt's palace is an ocean nightmare, and if I were an attorney actually advising Jabba's palace, I would encourage a lot of changes. If I were an employment attorney, I would go hunting for Hutt because of the cruelty that takes place there. First off, you can't have trap doors. That should go without saying because it's just a big murder device. It's a way to kill people. Now, businesses can't have big holes in the floor that people can fall into. They have to be covered because it's just an OSHA violation screaming for a lawyer to look at and say, like, that is unsafe. Now, we do see the Gamorrean guard fall in to the Rancor pit through the trapdoor when he tries to confront Luke Skywalker. Now, there's this doctrine called assumption of risk. He was working at Jabba the Hutt's palace. That's not exactly a smart life choice on numerous reasons. And he did try to take on a Jedi Knight, and he knew about the hole in the floor. Arguably, he knew what he was doing when he fell through there and subsequently was eaten. Now let's talk about the Rancor and having the Rancor pit, because it's just a big murder pit. If you have wild animals on your property and you know about it, you're going to be strictly liable for them. Now, in Jabba's case, he's using the Rancor to murder people. Poor Ula got eaten. They tried to feed Luke Skywalker to the Rancor. All of that's bad, and it's attempted murder. but it's also a big, big property liability issue if you just have a wild animal running around on your property. Think of people who would have alligators and they know that there are alligators in their backyard. That's inherently dangerous. And if they take no action to warn people about that, they could be liable for it. Now let's talk about an issue that's really hard to ignore. Stormtroopers die left and right, and could they sue for defective body armor? Well, let's think about that. Looking at the secondary material, we see that the body armor actually did have an express warranty to protect the wearer against projectile weapons. So on Jeddah, we saw a blind man with a stick take out a bunch of stormtroopers. And then at Endor, we saw EWOKS go to town on all of those stormtroopers. Could they sue? Well, if you get around the issue of sovereign immunity, and if you're actually able to say sue a manufacturer of the body armor, there's a good argument that they could prove the elements that the implied warranty or the express warranty was violated, because sticks and little axes clearly failed and stormtroopers were barbecued as part of an Ewok meal. Now let's talk about the doctrine of fear. Now, not enough evil credit goes to Tarkin in the original Star Wars, because Tarkin took this position of, we have the doctrine of fear. People are going to be afraid of us because we're going to blow up planets. And by doing that, we will control the galaxy. Now, this is demonstrated on Alderaan in order to get Leia to talk about where the rebel base is. Is that a valid use of military necessity? Is it like saying the only way to stop the rebels is to kill their families? And God forbid an elected official actually say anything that scary. Well, the answer is absolutely not. Military necessity are measures that are relevant and proportional to the action that is sought. Getting Leia to talk about where the rebel base is and killing 6 billion people on Alderaan, not proportional. So no, that's a giant war crime, and Tarkin just did it so coolly, and credit to Peter Cushings for being able just to deliver those lines. So since nations are prohibited from committing war crimes, specifically targeting non-combatants, it just really drives home the point that killing 6 billion people on Alderaan, not okay. Now let's talk about the furry war criminals known as EWOKS. In the Galaxy of Adventures episode in Imperial Feast, we see that stormtroopers are strung up and they're going to be rotisserie cooked for an Ewok meal. There are so many war crimes at issue with that, it's not funny. So let's see what a fictional stormtrooper could say if he talked about what he saw at Endor.
What did the EWOKS do to the stormtroopers they injured?
I can't not see it. My whole squad was taken out. And I ran, but I still saw them being dragged off. And they were setting them up on rotisseries, they were being cooked, they were being beheaded. On my way out, I saw 4 guys from my squad, their heads were on sticks. One of those little bastards was playing them like drums. You know, I get it. I'm not looking for sympathy, okay? This is not a friendly face. We were being trained from day one to hurt people and break their stuff. I know that. We were bad guys. I'm not making excuses, okay? But you know, as bad as the Empire was, we never ate anybody, okay? Those guys didn't deserve that.
Eating POWs. That is absolutely a war crime. So breaking down all the things that happen with tying up a POW and hitting them with a stick, that's a war crime. You're not supposed to actually beat prisoners of war. Cooking a POW, that's absolutely cruel treatment. We're not supposed to do that in war. Now, eating a POW, that's actually murder because you have to kill the POW in order to eat them. All very bad, and that is absolutely a war crime. Now, the other part of this is when you actually cook a human being and you're deciding to fillet them and all the other things that a butcher would do, that's mutilation. Again, a war crime. So slow roasting stormtroopers over a rotisserie would cause serious bodily harm. It's absolutely intentional, and there's no doubt about it, it's a war crime. And there are, fortunately, not a lot of war crime cases where people were eaten, but there is at least one major one that happened during World War II on the island of Chichijima, where the Imperial Japanese Army officers would eat the downed American flyers in order to get their spiritual energies by eating their livers. Truly horrible. There was one pilot who was shot down who landed in the ocean and was rescued by a submarine, and he was George H.W. Bush. So there's a lot to unpack there, but we actually do have war crimes cases where people were eaten. And when you think of those empty stormtrooper helmets and little EWOKS banging them on drums, what happened to the stormtrooper that wore that helmet? Now let's talk about The Mandalorian, which is just so darn cool. Now, did the Mandalorian have a duty to rescue the child from the client? Now, there's no duty to go out and rescue people. You have to have a special relationship in order for that type of duty to arise. So, did the Mandalorian have a special relationship with the child? Well, a special relationship can arise when one party is entrusted with the well-being of another individual. When you think about the child being liberated from all those bandits, that the adventures that took place in order to get the child to the client, and then just the realization that you are turning a child, a toddler, over to war criminals who have a history of blowing up planets for some dark experimentation that's truly evil science. Yeah, you could say there's a special relationship there. Plus, just look into the child's eyes and ask yourself, would I leave him with space Nazis who want to perform experiments? And if the answer is yes, you better look in your heart and do a little self-reflection, because you should go in guns blazing to save Baby Yoda. I would, and I would defend you if you did. Well, let's talk about self-defense. And one of the best legal issues in all of Star Wars. So let's talk about self-defense and why Han was right. Self-defense requires that a person, where from the nature of an attack, the assailed person believes on reasonable grounds that he is in imminent danger of losing his life or of receiving great bodily harm from the assailant, may stand his ground, and if necessary for his own protection, may take the life of his adversary. California has been a stand your ground state since the beginning of our statehood. Now, when you look at what happens with Han, he's sitting in the cantina, his back's to the wall, so he really can't escape. There's no place to go. And Guido has his blaster pointed at Han the entire time they are talking. So when you get to the part of the conversation that says, Han saying, "over my dead body," and Guido saying, "that's the idea, I've been looking forward to this for a long time," that sounds like an imminent threat to Han's safety and his life when you give in the location of where they are, that this is a bounty hunter from Jabba's palace, a weapon is pointed directly at Han, and we have a threatening statement made. All of that appears to be justification for Han to shoot first. So with that, normally we would take questions, but since this is not live, hit us up online. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at The Legal Geeks. You can find our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. We are in many directories. I want to thank the good folks at WonderCon. We're here to help, and we are glad to participate in WonderCon at home. Thank you all, and enjoy our virtual WonderCon.